Protectionism. It's one of those words in economics that, well, it has a pretty bad rap. But what if I told you it was the secret ingredient behind one of the biggest companies in the world? Today, we're going to dive into the incredible story of Airbus and how a strategy many people call outdated actually built a global champion. So when you hear that word protectionism, what pops into your head? Do you picture some kind of economic wall built to shut out the world and kill competition? Or could it be something else? Could it be a strategic shield used carefully to nurture a new champion from the ground up? That's really the central question we're digging into here.
All right, so to answer that question, we all need to be on the same page. Let's take a second and break down what protectionism actually is.
At its core, protectionism is basically a government's toolkit for giving its own homegrown industries a home field advantage. You could think of it as the polar opposite of pure free trade. So instead of just letting goods flow freely across borders, a country might use things like tariffs, import quotas, or even direct cash subsidies to give its own companies a little boost. Now you might be thinking, wait a minute, building these kinds of economic walls goes against pretty much everything we're taught about free trade. And you'd be right. So what's the argument for it? Let's look at the theories that actually support this pretty controversial idea. You know, this debate isn't new. It's been raging for centuries. On one side, you've got the godfathers of free trade, Adam Smith and David Ricardo. Their whole thing was that every country should just specialize in what it does best for maximum efficiency. But on the other side, you have this guy, Friedrich List, who came up with what's called the infant industry argument. He said that new, promising industries are like tiny saplings. You can't just plant them in a forest full of giant trees and hope for the best. No, they need a greenhouse, some temporary protection to grow strong enough to actually compete.
And this idea got a really important modern update from the economist Paul Krugman. He argued that in certain strategic high-tech sectors, think aviation, semiconductors, that kind of stuff, the startup costs are just so unbelievably massive that new players have basically zero chance of breaking in. So the key idea here is that a huge dose of strategic government help, right at the beginning, can create a lasting competitive advantage for an entire country.
But, and this is so important, it's not a blank check. For this high-risk strategy to actually pay off, theorists say you have to follow some very strict rules. First off, the government help has to be temporary. You have to be targeting innovative industries with massive potential. It also has to be paired with a relentless push to be more efficient and productive. And, maybe most importantly, once that industry can stand on its own 2 feet, the government has to back off. That's the playbook. Let's see if Airbus actually followed it.
Okay, so that's the theory. Now, let's see how this stuff plays out in the real world. To really get the Airbus story, we have to rewind the clock back to the 1960s, a time when one country, and pretty much one country alone, completely ruled the skies.
I mean, the scale of this dominance was just staggering. Get this. American companies like Boeing, McDonnell Douglas, and Lockheed controlled 90% of the entire global airliner markets. It wasn't really a competition, it was a monopoly. Meanwhile, over in Europe, they had tons of brilliant engineers and a really rich aviation history, but their industry was totally fragmented. It was broken up into all these small national companies. They were building some great planes, don't get me wrong, but none of them had the scale to even think about taking on the American giants. It was a classic David versus Goliath scenario, except in this case, there were like a dozen Davids, and none of them were working together. So, faced with this pretty bleak reality, European governments decided to do something radical. They decided to stop competing with each other and start competing with the rest of the world. So back in 1970, 4 nations, France, Germany, the UK, and Spain, did the unthinkable. They put their national rivalries aside and joined forces. They created a single European consortium with just one mission: build an airplane that could challenge America's dominance. And they called it Airbus Industry. And they absolutely put their money where their mouth was. We're talking more than 15 billion euros in what they called launch aid. Now, these weren't grants or handouts. They were low-interest government loans for the incredibly expensive R&D. But here's the real kicker. They only had to be paid back if the planes were a commercial success. You know, once a certain number of them were sold. The governments were basically taking on almost all of the risk up front. So, this was their playbook. And really, it was a masterclass in strategic protectionism. First, those massive subsidies we just talked about. Second, a coordinated industrial policy. This was brilliant. Each country specialized. France did the final assembly, the UK built the wings, Germany handled the fuselage.
Third, national airlines like Air France and Lufthansa were, let's just say, strongly encouraged to buy the new European planes. And finally, political protection. European governments went to bat for Airbus, fighting back against any trade challenges from the US.
It was an audacious, incredibly risky bet. I mean, the whole thing could have failed spectacularly. So, the billion-euro question is, did it pay off? Let's look at the results.
The rise was, well, it was nothing short of meteoric. By 1995, Airbus had already carved out a respectable 20% of the market. But just 10 years later, in 2005, bam, it had achieved total parity with Boeing, hitting 50%. And today, it stands as a global leader, often delivering more planes per year than its American rival. The result was a complete transformation of the industry. Europe's strategy didn't just create a company, it shattered a monopoly. It turned a market dominated by a single player into a competitive global duopoly, which gave airlines and, by extension, all of us who fly, way more choice than ever before.
And the impact, it just rippled out way beyond market share. Think about it, over 130,000 high-skilled jobs created in Europe. Cutting-edge technology, like advanced composite materials, that spilled over into cars, defense, and even the energy sector. And Airbus became an absolute export powerhouse, bringing in over 100 billion euros a year. It's just massive. So the results are pretty undeniable. But the really big question is, why did it work? Because, let's be honest, protectionism often creates lazy, inefficient companies that can't compete. Why did this case succeed where so many others have failed? Well, let's go back to that rule book we talked about and run the check. Was the intervention temporary? Yes, it was designed just to get them off the ground. A high-potential industry? Yeah, aviation was clearly the future. Was it paired with a ruthless focus on innovation? Check. And did it create a true global competitor? A resounding yes. It passed the test with flying colors. And that right there is the secret sauce. You see, the goal wasn't to protect a weak company from competition forever. It was to incubate a strong company for competition. It was a shield, not a wall. And it was used to forge a champion that, in the end, made the entire market more dynamic and more innovative for everyone. And all of this leaves us with a final, really fascinating question. As countries today look at all these strategic industries, things like semiconductors, artificial intelligence, green energy, you have to wonder, what is the next Airbus? And more importantly, will they learn the right lessons from this incredible story?